it's going to be an amazing morning. I was so pumped to get home last night in time for this. We've got some really brave and amazing people. And, you know, the series that we're in right now is just called Stories, Unfiltered Stories. Like, we want to hear the real thing that people go through. And it's amazing when you hear somebody else's real story, it does encourage you. And so this morning, we've got three amazing people. We're starting off with Lillie. Now, Lillie, are you 18? 18! Wow. I mean, at 18, there's no way in the world you get me up here in front of everybody to talk. And yet, you know, she said she's excited but terrified. So, you know what you need to do? You need to be the best cheerleaders in the world. And give her all of the help you can possibly give her as she shares her story. And then, you know, let God use that story in your life. And then we've got Alex is coming up. Now, Alex is just a little bit older than 18, I think. Right, Alex? Little bit. Can't wait to hear your story too, Alex. And then we've got Ashley. And I know how old she is, and she doesn't want me to tell you. She's 32, right? Right, perfect. As if. She hits the big 40 this year, guys. September 20th, it's big 40 with the balloons and everything else going off. It's going to be awesome. So, could you help me out and just give the greatest encouragement and stand to your feet and clap wildly for Lillie as she comes. Yeah! Love you.
Hi. Oh. I am Lillie, not Lilith. I serve here early in the children's ministry, so I'm used to a lot more screaming children and running around, so this is nice. But I'm honored to be up here. When I was preparing for this, I kind of had a slight meltdown because I was just immediately struck with the realization, like, I am so underqualified to be up here. And I am so nervous and terrified. And I was just crying out to God, like, God, I can't do this. He's like, yeah, you can't. But it's not you, it's me. Don't rely on yourself, rely on me. And so that's why I love this series, because as much as this is my story and a journey that I've walked through, it's so much more a testimony of God's goodness and his faithfulness. And so I just want to share with you my story and what I've learned through that. And the overarching thing is that God brings goodness out of brokenness and that he's faithful in our failures. So, my story. I grew up pretty normal. It wasn't until my early teens that I started to be more aware of my circumstance, more aware that my father was unhealthy, that my parents' relationship was unhealthy, my whole family unit was dysfunctional. When I was 14, my parents got divorced, and I had to come to terms with the fact that my father was a toxic person, and our relationship was toxic, and so there was this void inside of my heart, and it left me feeling hurt and broken, ashamed, confused, embarrassed, and I became very anxious. And about 2 months before the storm hit, we started coming to relate. And I'm just really grateful that it was a welcoming place, because I remember not wanting to go. And I remember my mom forcing me to go and like locking the door and making me go inside. And I thought I'd be judged for some reason, but I was immediately proven wrong. And I kept coming back, and I'm here today. I've known God my whole life. There hasn't been a time where I haven't known him, but this storm brought me closer to him. And just the fact that I'm standing up here today is insane, because 4 years ago, I would want to hide, and I wouldn't want to be up here. So God's just so good. But since that initial storm, I walked through many highs and lows, and just this past winter, I walked through one of the darkest lows I've ever been through, and I told absolutely no one until after. And so I became really depressed and just absolutely alone. I felt absolutely alone. And my focus was not on God. It was on everything that was negative, everything that was wrong with me, my life, my family, my friends, and I believed that I had lost, that I should give up, and that I shouldn't keep going on. And I remember saying to God, where are you? You're not doing what I want you to be doing. So I'm just going to take it all on, and I'm going to do everything by myself. And that didn't go so well. And from that moment, it just went downhill. And I thought I'd been carrying so much then, but I realized God was carrying so much for me. And when I said, I'm going to take it all on, I was just hit with reality, like he's carrying me. But it went downhill, and soon enough, I started believing that I was better off dead, that I should just give up. And I came really close to acting out on these suicidal thoughts. And when I look back, I remember there's still a part of me that knew what I was thinking was wrong, and that it was stopping me from fully acting out on these thoughts. If this was a test, I completely failed. I completely gave up on God. I disregarded him. I stopped listening to worship music. I stopped reading the Bible, speaking to him. But just before women's conference, so like March, I was in my room and I just was like, okay, fine. It was a really humbling moment for me, but I was like, God, I can't do this all on my own. I really can't. And I talked to God, and by his grace, I was pulled out of it, and then I realized that part of me that knew what I was doing was wrong, that was stopping me from acting out, wasn't me, but it was God speaking to me, and I was just too angry to pay attention to this. And so at women's conference, Pastor Helen gave us all a Passion Translation Bible, and that night I went home and I started to read it, and I just started right from the beginning, Psalms, and I got to Psalm 6, and I was just immediately overwhelmed with emotion, and I felt like God was speaking to me through it. So I'm going to read it to you. It's a whole chapter, but it's not too long. If I can find it. It should be up on the, yeah. I'm going to find it. All right, I'll read it. No, Lord, don't condemn me. Don't punish me in your fiery anger. Please deal gently with me. Show me mercy, for I'm sick and frail. I'm fading away with weakness. Heal me, for I'm falling apart. How long until you take away this pain in my body and in my soul? Lord, I'm trembling in fear. Turn to me and deliver my life, because I know you love and desire to have me as your very own. How can I be any good to you, dead? For those who are in the graveyard sing no songs in the darkness of death who remembers you. How could I bring you praise if I'm buried in a tomb? I'm exhausted and worn out with my weeping. I endure weary, sleepless nights filled with moaning, soaking my pillow with my tears. My eyes of faith won't focus anymore, for sorrow fills my heart. There are so many enemies who come against me. Go away. Leave me, all you workers of wickedness, for the Lord has turned to listen to my thunderous cry. Yes, the Lord, my healer, has heard all my pleading and has taken hold of my prayers and answered them all. Now it's my enemies who have been shamed. Terror-stricken, they will turn back again, knowing the bitterness of sudden disgrace. People, I just want to tell you that God hears your cry. When you're exhausted and you're worn out with your weeping, he hears you. And when it feels like the burden of all your struggles causes you to lose focus, he's still there with you. I think it's easy to forget and take for granted just how much God carries us in the lows, because our thoughts stoop to low levels as well. We begin to identify as victims when really we're victors with Jesus Christ. It says in 1 Corinthians 15:57, but thanks be to God who gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. If you love and know Jesus, you aren't a loser. So do not be like me and give up. The devil wants you to believe that you're a loser and forget that Jesus has already won. God spoke to me. He's like, Lillie, you are not a depressed person. You are not an anxious person. That is not who you are. You are not defined or defeated by your circumstance, your struggle. You are refined. and you find who you are in me. And I love you so much that I died for you. And I think the same can be said for everybody here, for everybody. He loves you so much. And he is so good. And he uses our trials for good. And for the longest time, and even now, I still don't fully understand why we walk through storms. Just know that God did not and does not create them, but he uses them for good. And I love what Tammy said yesterday. I was listening, and she said, if we don't walk through difficult times, then we don't get to experience victory. So good. And when we are weak, he is strong. 2 Corinthians 12:9 says, my grace is always more than enough for you, and my power finds its full expression through your weakness. So when we push him away, he's still there. When we cry out to him, he's there. You can't push away God. And believe me, I thought I did, but I'm so glad he didn't listen to me. And I also learned that he uses our pains to soften our hearts, to draw us closer to him, to help us love on a deeper level, him and others. And so without walking through this heart-softening process, the pain, we aren't able to see the full expression of his power. So we are not defined by our pain, our failures, our weakness, the struggles we face. We are refined. And it is all because of Jesus and the grace and the love he has for us. And so I just want to read the rest of 2 Corinthians 9. So my grace is always more than enough for you, and my power finds its full expression through your weakness. So I will celebrate my weaknesses, for when I am weak, I sense more deeply the mighty power of Christ living in me. So I'm not defeated by my weakness, but delighted. When I feel my weakness and endure mistreatment, when I'm surrounded with troubles on every side and face persecution because of my love for Christ, I am made yet stronger, for my weakness becomes a portal to God's power. It's so good. And, oh my goodness. I'm just really thankful that, not that there was pain in my life, but that God used it for good. And I don't know, like, I just want to let everyone know just to take courage when you're walking through something really difficult. And somebody said to me, I forget who, but it just stuck with me. Because I feel like as Christians, we're not going to be safe. Like, we're not going to always be happy. We're going to go through times that are difficult. And I just feel, just take courage in that moment. Just be encouraged, because the more the devil tries to beat you down, the greater the plans God has for you. So, thank you.
Hey! How we doing? Cool. How good was that? She's amazing. Okay. So I'm Alex. Hi, everybody. How we all doing? So I serve here at Lillie Church. I'm typically back there leading worship, which is my getting to be a more comfortable zone. Thanks, Mia. We also, Taylor, my wife, right here in the front row, also serves on worship team. We do a few other things in the church. We do some stuff with executing our large events. We do some PAing for Pastor John. Recently, I've kind of joined our makeshift men's culinary team. If you're a guy and you have a passion for food, come talk to me. We need you, because Rod and I are running out of ideas. I'm going to start by thanking our pastors, not only PJ and Pastor Helen, but also Pastor Angela and Rod. They're amazing, and without them, this platform would not be here, and these opportunities would not be here. Thank you for being open-handed with the platform, and thank you for being fathers to the church globally and nationally, and thank you for putting your wisdom out there and saving marriages. I've been able to travel just a little bit with them, only once actually, but also been in many rooms full of leaders. And the constant theme that I hear about PJ and Helen is how much impact they have had on people's marriages and that they have saved marriages. So they are awesome. Probably one of the most quoted scriptures ever, but here we go, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. And I like this one in verse 12. It's not up there, but it's here. Then you will call upon me and I will listen to you. Then you will call upon me and I will listen to you. If there was a title over my little 10-minute skit thing here, 7.5, here we go. It would be the key to walking in God's best for you is in your yes.
That's right. Yeah.
God intends the best for you, but you hold the key. The yes is the key for the best that God has for you. So let that sink in. If you feel like you're not experiencing God's best for you, it's on you. And you need to say yes. I believe that God's intention towards you is for you to experience his best for you, so you prosper, so you flourish. His plan is to give you a hope and a future. You are always one yes to God away from walking in his plan for you. Okay? I'm going to tell you a story about a timeline story about our coming to Relate Church and kind of our walk through here. This isn't really the messy stuff. If you want to know the messy stuff, hit me up another time. That's another story. This is us saying yes to God. It's not on here, but in September 2010, we felt called away from a church that we were serving at actively, and we felt called to find a new church that was going to help thrive and prosper and grow our marriage. Our friend Bobby, who is not here, he will be later, I'm sure, invited us in November 2010 to come to Relate Church, and we said yes. We attended Relate Church. A couple weeks after attending, we experienced Miracle Offering Weekend, and we felt called to make Relate Church our home, so we did. It's been almost 8 years since, which is crazy how fast time flies. February 2011, after intending to take a break from being on worship team for at least 6 months, we had actively served on our other church's worship team for years, and we just felt like we wanted to sink into the church and really build in and form relationships and that kind of stuff. Our worship pastor, worship team director at the time, basically twisted our arm and put us on team. We ended up in auditions, and here we are, still doing our thing. We've been actively serving on worship teams for like 12-ish years. And that was just us saying, okay, God, this is in front of us now. We're going to say yes to that. And we do not regret it. August 2011, we get married. 1 month later, this is crazy. 1 month later, we commit to doing a 1-year stint at our East Campus. We also serve at Wildfire as active leaders. It's our youth program, or was the church's youth program. And we also run Wildfire Worship, all in the first year of our marriage. This was crazy, and it was a lot. I can say, looking back on it, I don't know if we would do it again. If you came to me now with it, I don't know if we would do it again, but I do not regret it. Because we said yes, we stepped into a hard season, and God grew us through that hard season. 2012, Taylor does interns. Woo! Works part-time, and we push into God's provision. We needed more, and God provided. There was times in this season, like our income got slashed heavily. Interns had a cost attached to it, so did the missions trip. And we have a spiritual gift of faith, thank God. And we just said, God will provide, God will provide, God will provide. We weren't irresponsible, and we planned, but it was like, we're gonna need God to, if there was anything that went wrong, like our transmission blowing. Remember when our transmission blew? And then a friend showed up with $1,500 cash? Right. That's God providing, okay? And that's God providing from a yes. That's God's plan being provided for from a yes. I got 3.5 minutes. Okay, September 2013, we feel let off our plan again. And 3 years before we intend, we decided to start growing our family. We have a teary-eyed conversation, and we feel that God has this for us and that he will take care of us. And we start our family, and it's crazy. August 2014, Lila is born. And I wasn't going to touch on it. And I'll just get this one later out of the way. Both our kids were born into really hard seasons. I call our kids the comfort kids, the therapy kids, because they were both born into seasons of loss. And they held the family together. And it was from us responding yes to God that we got those kids. Shake that off. I don't cry. Throughout this whole time, we feel called to ministry and leadership. And when our family grew, we chose, barring sickness and vacation, that we will be at church. We will serve the church, and we'll do it as a family. Period. We take a stance of yes. It's like this wide-legged stance. That's what I call it. Can't do it any wider because I'm wearing skinny jeans. But you widen out your base, and you plant in deep, and you go, I'm not going anywhere. Because there's things in this season that could have shook us and could have took us out of church and away from you people, you beautiful people. But we said yes to God, and we said yes to church, and we spread out, we planted deep, and we stayed here. And it was hard. There was a lot of seasons of hard. But we're committed here through the hard. June 2015, I start my small business, self-employed. I leave my job of 8.5 years, and we thrive. We are still able to serve God and serve at church, and we're actually able to do it out of a place of abundance, and now I'm in complete control of my schedule. I do what I want, when I want, for Christ. I can say yes when I want, and all I have to do is count the cost, because it'll cost. Every time that we say yes, guess what? There's a cost. August 2016, Bo's born. He's a crazy kid. He's a wild child. He's fun. He's a lover. June 2018, we go to art conference. And we answer yes to a call on our lives, and now we are patiently waiting on God's timing. I'm not going to get into what this calling was or is. We'll get there in time. But we said yes to it. And Pastor Helen said to me the other day, she said, if you guys didn't respond to that, I was coming to get your hands and pull you up to the altar. So we were responding one way or the other. Sometimes people pull you into your yes. Exodus 3, God calls Moses. 13 seconds, cool. Exodus 3, God calls Moses. He says yes and leads the people from Israel out of Egypt. Okay? God calls Moses. He says yes, leads the people out of Israel out of Egypt. That's a tongue twister. Moses ran away from Egypt. He didn't want to be there, but God called him to something that he didn't want to do. And he said yes. Joshua 6, God calls Joshua to march around Jericho for 7 days. And at the end, Jericho was delivered to Israel. You know, the walls came tumbling down. God wants all, capital A-L-L, all his blessing for you. All. God doesn't want to give you a blemished blessing, a bruised blessing. He wants to give you a full and complete blessing. Okay? The Israelites could have went like, that's Jericho. We're just going to go this way. And we're going to go over there, and that's the promised land. And this is like the edge of the promised land, so we don't really need to worry about Jericho. We can just leave Jericho where it stands, and we can just ignore it, go around it, go past it. But that is not what God had intended for the Israelites. He had all the promised land intended for them. Samuel 16, God calls David. He says yes, stays a shepherd, delivers a nation, serves a king, becomes a king. Okay. David gets anointed. He says yes. He stays a shepherd. Knowing what he's called to, he stays a shepherd. I think there's some people that are in the waiting period right now, and they feel like they're staying a shepherd. Maybe they're called to something, called to preach, called to lead, called to business, whatever it is. Know that sometimes when you're called and you say yes, there's a waiting period, and there's work to be done in the waiting period. Matthew 14:29. Ha! There it is. Jesus says, "Come." Come, he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on water, and came towards Jesus. His faith then wavered and began to sink. Let's not worry about his faith, what his faith did after he got out of the boat, but let's focus on the fact that he said yes and got out of the boat. He walked on water, then became afraid, and his lack of faith caused him to sink. Peter was a brash, unfiltered, real piece of work. He witnessed Jesus do miracles. At this point in the Bible, Jesus was like healing people and doing crazy miracles. Peter witnessed all of this. He still lost faith. He lost his faith. He cut off a man's ear defending Jesus, which Jesus then put back on. He denied Christ 3 times after the crucifixion, and yet God saw fit to not only position him to be one of Jesus' closest friends, but also a father of the early church. Because Peter said yes. Okay? The walking out of God's plan in your life lies in your yes. Not attached to your strength or your quality of faith. If there is a mustard seed of faith in your yes, then that is enough for God to do the impossible with. Okay? And I'm going to pitch this, even though Taylor said you pitched it last time. I believe there's a room full of people here that need to say yes. And guess what? You can say yes right here, in church. The best place for you to say yes to Christ is in church. You can plant in, you can serve on team, you can do growth track. Jackie can put you on a team. Jackie, put your hand up. That's Jackie. All you people who need to say yes can go talk to Jackie later on, and she'll put you on a team, and you'll just get to have so much fun with us. And it'll be messy, but you'll have fun. And you'll walk into God's best for you. And I think there's people that's tuning me out right now. I think there's people that are younger and there's people that maybe are older. And you need to know that if you're older, that you're not forgotten, that you are needed, that we do love you. We need your wisdom. We need your help, and it's not over for you. You might be retired from your 9 to 5, but guess what? I got a 5 to 9 for you. Right here, church. All right? And if you're a teenager, if you're a young person, don't let that disqualify you. Because Lillie beat me by 5 minutes. She actually accomplished the task at hand. I took too much time. Sorry.
How good was that? Come on, let's say thank you to Alex. It's awesome. We did not talk about what we were going to talk about, and I'm going to continue where Alex was. I'm Ashley, and I'm just going to dive right into the scripture. So Alex mentioned Exodus 3, and I was like, oh, that's what we're talking about today. So, which is the story of Moses in the desert when he encounters the burning bush. So in the next few minutes, I just want to take that story, and I want to parallel it with a few things that I have learned along my desert journey that hopefully you can learn from. I hope that I went through it so that you can learn from it. But you might ask, what is a desert? I would consider it a place of barrenness, hopelessness, loneliness. It really is a state of mind. It could be perhaps you've made a mistake. You've broken trust with somebody and you just want to erase like 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 2 weeks, and you want to go back in time because you just want to fix that mistake, and you feel completely hopeless in this place where people see you differently. Or perhaps maybe you've been working years for a job promotion and you have been diligent to show up on time and put all the extra work in, and nobody sees you, and you got passed over for promotion and you think, why am I here? What in the world am I giving my time for if this is what I'm going to get? Or perhaps you or somebody you love got a really bad doctor's report, And again, you feel hopeless because there's absolutely nothing that you can do to fix it. Maybe your husband or your wife left you. Maybe your marriage is broken up. Everything that you dreamt about in the past has now just come to an abrupt halt. Or maybe you're dating somebody and you thought that was your forever person, and they broke up with you, and again, you just feel, well, what do I do? What's wrong with me? Maybe you have kids who are out of control and you are ready to give up and just go and take a forever vacation and be like, somebody else raise my children. Or maybe you're lonely. This is so real. Maybe you have put out connections, or you've tried to make friends and over, keep putting yourself out, but it's not clicking, and you just find yourself always alone, and you just think, why? What is it with me that I can't make these friendships? There are so many places that we can consider a desert. But the thing is that we have a choice in everything. To get up and dust off the desert sand and stand up and move towards the things of God, which is the oasis of God. We're going to speak from this portion, like I said, Exodus 3, which is when Moses found himself in the desert. Just to give you a tiny bit of background. So Moses was an Israelite. And he was born into an Israelite family, but he was saved into Egyptian royalty, which is in Exodus 2, so you can go read it. He murdered an Egyptian guard who was beating an Israelite who was enslaved, and he had to go into hiding because there was a price on his life. So he ended up in the desert, and he decided to make his home there. He got married there, he had children there, he got a job there working for his father-in-law, Jethro, tending sheep. And he had just figured, like, the royalty thing, that's my past. This is going to be my future from now on. And meanwhile, back in Egypt, the people, Israelite people, were enslaved, and things were getting worse and worse. And Moses knew this, but what was he going to do? If he went back there, they were going to kill him, right? So he just like, it's okay, this is my thing, this is what I'm going to do. Because what in the world could he do to make a difference? So Exodus 3, starting in verse 2, should be up there. It says, there was an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a blazing fire from the middle of a bush. Moses stared in amazement. Though the bush was engulfed in flames, it didn't burn up. This is amazing, Moses said to himself. Why isn't that bush burning up? I must go see. When the Lord saw Moses coming to take a closer look, God called to him from the middle of the bush. Moses, Moses, here I am, Moses said. So my story, probably a lot of you know my story, and there's a lot to tell, but I can say at least 5 or 6 times in my life that I have found myself in the most desolate desert, where I was full of shame, where I thought, what is my purpose? Why am I even here on earth? People could do things a lot better than me. I just thought I was washed up and I was disqualified in everything. I remember when I was 19 years old, I hated turning 20. I cried. That's the only birthday I think I've cried at. I did. Now I look back, I'm like, seriously. But I cried when I turned 20 because I thought, I'm not going to be special anymore. I'm going to be normal. Well, when I turned 30, I was even more normal. I did throw myself a dance party. But yeah, that was thanks, Uncle Jimmy. At his house. I turned it into a dance party because I had to be a little less normal. And now that I'm 39, because my dad so nicely pointed that out, not 40 yet, guys. Got a couple weeks. I am now, you can't tell it now, but I am a Birkenstocks, Prius driving, mum jean wearing woman. And I am proud because it is practical and it is comfy. I dressed up for you today because I'm on platform, but that's my normal. But I'm really normal now. Now I'm really, really normal. And see, the thing is that I could think that my dreams that I had when I was 19 years old are washed up, and I did for a long time. I thought those are disqualified. Those are the past. What do you have for me now, God? But God still has those dreams. God still planted those dreams. And so even though I'm wearing my Birkenstocks and driving my Prius, he still has those dreams that are as real as ever. So what can we learn from this Moses in the desert? Well, we're in the desert. First of all, we need to listen for God calling. Moses was familiar with his territory. He had never seen or heard the voice of God coming from this bush. But Moses probably wasn't listening for the voice of God because he didn't think God would be calling him. But the thing is, we're all deserving to be called, right? None of us, not one of us is not deserving to have God have appointed us. We were made. It says that we were knit together in the womb. He has a plan and a purpose for every single one of us, but we can't forget that. We need to keep pushing towards it. We need to know that we're not disqualified. I know I felt disqualified. I felt like I didn't deserve it. Everything that I was special for, it is all erased, and I am so not even close to what I should be. But God is always calling you. See, the bush, it didn't walk up to Moses. It didn't go, hey, hello. It says in the scripture that Moses had to notice it. He had to notice it, he had to see it, and then he had to move towards it. Like Alex was talking about, he had to say yes to it. He had to move towards it. And then he had, here I am. And again, I'm going to go on what Alex says. Here I am, you know what it is? It's a stance. Like he was saying, that wide stance. It's a stance. It's saying that you're willing to listen to God. And if you're not willing to listen to God, then he can't use you. But you have to be ready to listen to him. You need to have the posture of readying yourself for what may come. And we need to have a faith stance. We need to have a fight stance, and we need to have a generous stance. A stance that isn't about me anymore. I don't care. I'm not stuck in my wallowing about all the things that have been happening to me and all the things that have gone wrong. No, I have a stance that that's the past. God's going to use it, and I'm going to go forward with it. That's what it's about. It's about getting past your victim, and it's getting to prepare for your victory. Amen? Amen. Next you need to do is you need to silence the excuses. 2 times Moses said, why me, Lord? He had excuses, and let's be honest, a lot of our excuses are totally legitimate. They are. They are legitimate. But the thing is that we fool ourselves into calling them reasons. But remember who we are serving. We're not just serving a God who is okay with your excuses. We are serving a God who does so much more than we can imagine or think. And he has so many good things. So we see our mountain or we see our obstacle and we think we can't do that. But he looks at it and goes, whatever, I got it, but you need to have faith in him. You need to have faith that he's got amazing things for you. And one of the biggest keys that you can have in this is you need to surround yourself with people who see what God sees in you. You need to surround yourself who won't speak to the things that are behind you in the past, that bring you down, the excuses. You need to be surrounded by people who speak into your future, who speak the hope and the calling that God has in your life. It says in 1 Corinthians 15:33, don't be fooled by those who say such things, for bad company corrects good character. I know that I've taught my children, my parents taught me this, that you are who you hang around with. And that might be a great lesson for a child, but it's a great lesson until the day you meet Jesus. You are who you become. You become who you hang around with. So don't ever think that you're going to get past that place. And lastly, you need to walk it out. You need to have faith for the miracle. We were singing about it this morning. You need to have faith for your miracle. I know I wanted to quit. I wanted to quit the worship team. I did. I thought, why am I standing up there and worshiping when everybody's going to look at me and think, why is she up there? Her life is totally torn apart. She's broken. What does she have to do? I didn't want to stand up there. I didn't want to go up there and people think, oh, she's got to have it all together because she's leading worship. I tried to quit. My dad didn't let me. I was so mad at him. He didn't let me. He probably doesn't know I was mad at him, but I was mad at him. I didn't want to. I wanted to hide. I didn't feel like I deserved it, and I thought nobody wants me up there. But I'm so glad that he didn't, because I got to be able to see God work through my weakness. It was very practical. I stood up here and felt so worthless and singing these songs, but God was still moving. He wasn't moving because of me. He was moving because of who he is. He was using me, but he was not. But I wasn't necessary, but he was using me. You need to keep your priorities and not lose sight of the power of God. You need to keep your eyes locked on the target. And I want to talk to the people online. There you go, camera. I know a lot of you are probably watching online because you're on holidays. But there's probably a lot of you who are hiding and are ashamed and think once you walk into these doors, you're going to be met with people who are judging. Hello. Oh, there we go. You might think people are judging you, but they're not. It says in Romans 8:1, there is therefore no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus. We love you. We want to walk alongside you. And I'm going to give a little plug for Freedom Sessions. So Steve and I, we head up Freedom Sessions. It's starting again in the fall. But if there's something in your life that is holding you back, and you're sick and tired of the same old, you get to this one place and then you have this blockade. You know what? Freedom Sessions, do something about it. Don't just sit back. Do something about it. Sign up. It's a practical way to take a look. It's not easy, but you take a look at yourself and you're like, God, I'm done with this. Let's just move on. Let's have something bigger and better in our future, right? God is amazing. And I want to just quickly, he's coming up anyways. I want to flip the script on my dad for a second. Come up here, Dad. You're taking it from me anyways. He loves to be put on the spot, so I'm going to do this. So there's a lot of people. No, I've forgiven you. I love you. But there's a lot of people who are going through the desert place. But there's another flip side to that. When people you love are going through the desert place. And when I talk about surrounding yourself with good people, I surrounded myself with my parents. I always say they must have gotten so bored of me. Every Friday night I was dating my parents. And they never complained once. Who's going to take Ashley to the movie this week? But I want to ask you, Dad, on the other side of it, what is the most important thing that we can do when somebody's going through their desert to support and to love and just show God through it?
It's what we did with you, which is just keep speaking life into the darkness. I could see there was, on the inside, there was just nothing but pain. And just to wrap my arms around you and hold you and let you cry sometimes, but just keep speaking life into you.
Because we're all...
Now look at, like Helen just turned to me and said, that girl could preach.
I never want people to think that we're perfect. I might have the best parents in the world, but we're not perfect. I hate to admit it to you, but you're not perfect, Dad. Neither is Mom, and I'm certainly not perfect. But the thing is, church...
Where'd that come from?
Church isn't made up. We're not made up of perfect people.
Amen. Amen.
We're made up of people who are doing it together and doing the best we can.
Amen.
All right, I'm handing it over.